I grew up in a family that had very little money. We worked hard every day just to get by. My parents worked a lot, but their jobs didn't pay enough to give us stability or comfort. Saving money was just not a thing. After paying for food and a place to stay, there was nothing left, if we could even pay for those things. Many nights, the fridge was empty, and my stomach hurt from being hungry. When I was a kid, I found out fast that whining to my parents didn't make a difference. The situation was what it was, and I had to get used to living like that without asking any questions. It got harder when my little sister was born. Having another person to take care of made our lives more difficult. I can clearly remember how many times we had to leave the different places we lived in, again and again. The landlord would come asking for rent, and after many excuses, we would have to leave. My dad's old car, a worn-out gift from his grandmother, was our shelter many times. It wasn't a lot, but it was something, especially on cold nights when we had no other place to sleep. When you grow up in that situation, it's tough to picture a different life. I really wanted to do something great with my life. I believed that if I focused and studied hard in school, I could achieve my goals. My parents never said anything nice about my good grades. They really didn't seem to care at all. They didn't care about my school success. They thought I would just grow up to be a server or a cashier at a grocery store like they did. They just wanted me to stay out of trouble and look after my little sister. When I say take care, I mean they basically gave me the job of raising her. I remember that I was the one who would wake her up and help her get ready for school. I had to help her with her homework, even though I needed to study too. I always made sure she had all the things she needed. When she fell or got hurt, she called for me, not my parents. They were often busy with work, trying to pay the bills, and were hardly ever home with us. From a young age, I knew that taking care of my sister was my responsibility, even though I was just a kid too. My sister and I were really close because we spent a lot of time together. She admired me, and I tried hard to look after her, but we were quite different. I worked hard in school and got good grades, but she didn't really care about studying. I would sit with her to help her with homework or assignments, but she didn't focus or listen for very long. My parents didn't care about her grades any more than they cared about mine, so she didn't think school was important. In my final year of high school, I began to think about what I wanted to do in the future. I worked really hard for many years, always dreaming of a better life, and I wanted to go to a good university. My science teacher, who always saw my effort and good grades, was the one who suggested I think about applying to college overseas. At first, I didn't know if it could really happen. I didn't have any money, no help, and I didn't know how to make it happen. His support made me feel hopeful. He said I could do something great with my life, and that going abroad could help me find better chances. He even said he would help me apply for scholarships in other countries. My teacher knew that my life at home was hard, that my parents had a tough time, and that I had to take on a lot of responsibility. That's why he made me think even more about leaving. He said that being with my family could keep me stuck in the same cycle of not having enough money and facing hard times. He wanted me to work hard, discover my own way, and create a future where I could be independent and free with my money. I decided to take a chance and applied to a few universities in other countries. I didn't think I would get in at all, much less with a scholarship, but somehow my prayers were answered. I can still recall the surprise and confusion I had when I received my acceptance letter. It was one of the best times in my life, and finally, all my hard work had worked out in a way I never expected. My teacher was really happy for me, but my parents didn't feel the same way. They were not happy, really mad, actually. They didn't want me to go away from them. My mom was worried about me. She said I couldn't live by myself because I had never been away from them. The irony was that I had always been on my own my whole life. I had always taken care of myself without their help for as long as I could remember. I was the one who made things work, not them. My dad, on the other hand, tried to reason with me. He said he had always expected me to go to a local college and find a part-time job nearby so I could start helping out with the bills and rent. To him, my leaving felt like I was abandoning my responsibilities to the family. He said that as the man of the house, I needed to prioritize them first. Then there was my sister, and her reaction broke my heart. She begged me not to leave her, saying that she would be all alone with my parents if I went. She told me how my parents wouldn't even bother about her, and she was right. Other than me, no one in the family truly cared for her. I had always been the one to look after her, and she knew it. But even though my family begged me to stay, deep down I knew this was my only chance to change my life. I know it might sound selfish, but I realized if I let this opportunity pass, it might never come again. I didn't want to end up like my parents, trapped in a cycle of struggle, poverty, and constant worry. So despite their protests, I made the difficult decision to accept the offer from the university and move away from home. When I told my parents about my decision, they were furious. They saw my decision as a betrayal. They threatened to cut all ties with me if I left. My dad went so far as to say that he would never consider me his son anymore. He warned that if I ended up in jail or dead abroad, he wouldn't care. Those words were incredibly hurtful, but I didn't let his words bring me down. As if the anger from my parents wasn't enough, my younger sister was just as upset. When I told her I was leaving, she screamed at me for what felt like hours, calling me selfish and accusing me of leaving her when she needed me. She couldn't understand why I would choose to go when she felt like she still needed me here. I tried to explain that this wasn't about her, that I needed to do this for myself. I promised her that I would always be there for her, no matter what, but she refused to listen and threatened to stand by my parents' decisions to cut me off. It was painful to see her so upset, to know that my choice was causing her so much hurt. In the end, I knew that I had to stick to my decision, even if it meant severing ties with the people I loved. The more they refused to understand me, the more determined I became. Their rejection only fueled my resolve to move forward. I knew deep down that this was something I had to do for myself, for my own growth and happiness. No matter how painful it was, no matter how many sacrifices I had to make, I couldn't let their anger define my path. I had to stay true to myself, no matter the cost. The only person who stood by me was my science teacher, the one person who believed in my potential when no one else did. He didn't just offer encouragement, he went above and beyond. Knowing my family wasn't going to help me, he lent me some money to cover what I needed to get started during my university. I felt so bad borrowing money from him, but I still remember him saying, "One day, when you've made it and landed a good job, you can come back and pay me. Until then, don't worry about it." His kindness was overwhelming, and it gave me the strength to keep going. So I left. I moved abroad, worked hard, and made it through college. This year, I graduated, and I now have an amazing job, something I never thought would be possible when I was a child. It feels surreal to think about how far I've come. Now that I'm finally in a position to repay the loan my teacher gave me, I want to see him again more than anything. I want to thank him for believing in me when no one else did. Without his support, I don't know where I'd be. I also wanted to use this visit as an opportunity to reconnect with some of my family members. During my 4 years abroad, neither my parents nor my sister ever called me, not even once. I still don't fully understand why they were so angry at me for choosing to do what was best for me. Maybe they saw my decision as a rejection of them or felt abandoned. Whatever the reason, the silence hurt, but I tried to push those feelings aside. So I booked my flights and came to my hometown. The first person I visited was my science teacher. He had done so much for me, and I couldn't wait to tell him about everything I had achieved. He was thrilled to see me again and genuinely happy about the life I had built for myself. It felt amazing to share my success with the one person who believed in me from the start. Since my hometown is a small place, word spread pretty quickly that I was back and doing well in my career. Some of my relatives reached out, and I was happy to meet with them. They were kind and welcoming, and it felt nice to see familiar faces again. I also visited my maternal grandparents. It had been years since I had been in their home, and I missed my grandmother's cooking. Just walking into their house brought back so many warm memories. My grandparents had planned a family gathering for the occasion, hoping it would be the perfect opportunity for me to connect with the rest of my family. They had invited my parents, my sister, and some of my cousins. My grandparents believed that this would be a chance for us to let go of the past and reconnect as a family. I knew they had the best intentions, and part of me hoped they were right. But when the day came, my parents and my sister didn't show up to the party. Obviously, it was pretty clear that they didn't want to see me. I tried not to let it get to me, but their absence stung. While I enjoyed the company of my grandparents and cousins, there was still a hollow feeling knowing that the people I wanted to see most weren't there. It was during this party that one of my cousins shared something that left me completely speechless. Apparently, after the news spread that I was back in town, a lot of the neighbors and relatives started asking my parents why they weren't making an effort to meet with me. My cousin told me that instead of telling the truth or giving a simple answer, my parents had started telling everyone a completely false story about me. According to them, I was ungrateful. They were telling people that they had sacrificed everything for me, that they had poured every bit of their life savings into sending me abroad to the school I had dreamed of attending. And now, with me back home, they claimed that I wasn't ready to repay them for all of the sacrifices they'd made, and that this was why they didn't want to see me. It was shocking to hear that they were spreading such a one-sided and false narrative about me. As if this wasn't bad enough, my parents had also gone as far as to claim that my sister had to give up her own dreams because they had no money left after they had spent everything on me. I couldn't believe it. At first, I didn't know what to say, but then I started laughing. It was so ridiculous that I almost couldn't believe it. They sacrificed for me? Did they spend all their savings to send me abroad? I wish that were the truth. I wish they had actually given me some money, but no, they never did. Which is why I had to ask my teacher for money. In reality, I struggled every step of the way. Once I was abroad, my parents didn't just refuse to help me financially. They cut me off entirely. They didn't call me, check on me, or offer a single word of encouragement while I was trying to survive in a foreign country on my own. I had no one to fall back on. I was scared, alone, and struggled to survive throughout university. Fortunately, I secured a great job in the end, and it kind of made up for everything. Now that I've come back and built a life for myself, my parents didn't want people to know the truth. They didn't want anyone to see the way they abandoned me all those years ago when I needed them most. Instead, they were trying to spin this story to make themselves look like the victims and me the villain. I suppose it's easier for them to paint me as ungrateful than to admit that they cut ties with me because I chose to chase my dreams instead of staying home and sacrificing myself for them. So I decided to be honest with my cousins. I told them everything, the whole truth. Until then, I had always kept myself away from any family gossip. A few close people did know that my parents didn't speak to me much after I went abroad, but not everyone knew the whole story. So I explained to her how my parents had done little to nothing to help me when I needed them the most. I shared how I got into my dream college entirely on my own merit, without a single penny from them. I told them that my sister didn't have to give up on her dreams because of me, and there was no life-saving sacrifice for my education, because there were no savings to begin with. Every step I took was through my own hard work, with the support of people like my teacher, not my parents. My cousin was understandably furious when she learned the truth. And after that, I knew word would spread quickly within our family about what my parents had done to me. That's how things work in small towns. I know when my parents hear that I've been telling people the truth, they're going to be furious. They spread this false narrative to protect their image, and now it's going to crumble. Part of me wonders if I should have just ignored what they were saying. Maybe it would have been easier to let it slide and avoid the drama. But honestly, it makes me so angry hearing them twist the story to make themselves look like heroes while painting me as ungrateful. It's too much to bear after everything I went through. I can't just sit back and let them rewrite history. I know there will be fallout from this, so AITA for clarifying their crazy rumor. To be honest, I have no idea what my parents mean by claiming that my sister had to give up on her dreams because of me. She was never academically inclined and had no interest in going to college, even back when I was still living at home. That was just who she was, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it makes their excuses even more baffling. Even if she had suddenly decided she wanted to pursue college after I left, I don't understand why my parents couldn't have helped her, unless they simply chose not to. I wasn't taking any money from them. I didn't have their financial support in the first place. If they wanted to help her, they could have. It's clear this has nothing to do with me and everything to do with their unwillingness to own up to their choices. Now that people are questioning them about why they're not meeting with me, they've conveniently found the perfect scapegoat: me. It's easy for them to blame me for why they supposedly can't provide for my sister. It shifts attention away from them and their decisions while casting me in a bad light. It's obvious that my parents are manipulating the situation. They don't want to admit the truth about how they abandoned me all those years ago, or how they've managed their own responsibilities. It's frustrating and hurtful, but at this point, it's sadly not surprising. Since my parents don't have my contact information, they reached out to my grandparents instead, asking them to arrange a meeting with me this week. It seems the backlash they've been getting from my cousins and other relatives for lying about me finally pushed them to confront the situation. I readily agreed to meet with them and hash everything out. At the meeting, my sister was also present. Despite everything, I was genuinely happy to see her and my parents again. I hoped, maybe naively, that this could be an opportunity for us to reconcile. But as soon as the conversation started, it was clear that they didn't share that warmth. My parents wasted no time in laying the blame on me. They were upset that I had straightened out the narrative they had been telling everyone. My dad, in particular, was angry and told me I had no right to tell people the truth since I hadn't been living with them and didn't consider them family anymore. He accused me of abandoning them for the past 4 years, ignoring their existence, and then suddenly deciding to visit my grandparents and reconnect with relatives. Hearing him say that stung. Yes, I'd been away for 4 years, but that was only because they had made it clear they wanted nothing to do with me when I left for college. They were the ones who cut me off, refused to support me, and didn't even check in to see how I was doing all those years. And now they were twisting that into me being the one who had rejected them. I tried to remain calm when I spoke to my dad. I told him firmly that it wasn't me who had cut myself off from them. It was the three of them who had chosen to exclude me. I never had any issues with them. All I ever wanted was to be part of the family. I explained that while I had lived with the pain of being ignored and abandoned by them, it didn't mean I should remain silent when they spread such blatant lies about me. I was no longer willing to let them manipulate the story for their own benefit. Then I turned to my sister and asked her directly, "What kind of dream did you have to give up because of me?" According to our parents, she had supposedly sacrificed so much for me, but I had never really understood what that meant. At this, my mom immediately began to argue that yes, my sister had given up her dreams, and it was all because I wasn't here to help her. According to my mom, my sister's grades had suffered when I went away since she and Dad were too busy to look after her. And without me around to help her with her schoolwork, she had struggled to keep up. Because of her poor grades, she even had to drop out of high school. Basically, my mom told me that it was always my job to make sure my sister succeeded. It was my job to hold her hand through school and handle all of her problems. But since I didn't do that, she was now a failure, and I was to be blamed for that. I looked at my mom like she had lost her mind, while my dad and my sister agreed with her. How could she blame me for everything when it was clear that my sister, or even they, should have been taking more responsibility? It felt completely ridiculous. I had always been there for my sister in the ways I could throughout my childhood, but I couldn't just hold her hand through every single obstacle in her life, especially when I was trying to build my own future. I couldn't help but think how utterly entitled my family sounded. It was as if they had expected me to give up on my dreams for her. Did they seriously think that my entire existence should have revolved around my sister and her needs? They were acting like it was selfish of me to pursue something for myself, especially if it meant not being there every second for my sister. It wasn't my job to be her parent. My sister was now old enough to take responsibility for her own actions, just as my parents were. But no, they had collectively decided it was easier to make me the scapegoat, as if my absence was the sole reason for everything that went wrong. To make matters worse, my sister agreed with what my mother said and added fuel to the fire. She started to echo my mom's words, saying that when I left for school, it felt like I abandoned her. She told me how hard it had been to manage everything on her own, especially without me there to help her with her homework, keep her company, or give her advice when she needed it. What struck me the most was that she seemed to genuinely think that my decision to go abroad had been selfish, that I had chosen my dreams over her needs. That hurt to hear, but instead of fighting with her, I wanted to give her a chance. So I responded calmly, telling her that if she did want to change her life or pursue something new, I would be more than happy to help her now. If she wanted to go back to school or study further, I could sponsor her. If she wanted to apply for a better job that would help her grow, I'd be there to assist her however I could. I told her that since she clearly wanted my guidance so much, I would be happy to help her with anything she needed now. But instead of showing any interest in what I offered, my parents and my sister both told me that if I really wanted to help them, all I had to do was give them money. My sister, without any shame, made it clear that she didn't want to study further. She was happy living in this hometown with her current boyfriend, who worked at a grocery store. Her focus was no longer on education. She just wanted financial support from me. She even told me that if I could send them money every month, it would be great and could really help them out. I couldn't help but scoff when I heard this suggestion. The audacity of it all was overwhelming. This was exactly what they wanted all along, to make me feel guilty, twist the situation, and then ask me for money. Clearly, they thought of me as their personal ATM or something. Thankfully, my grandparents immediately shut down what my family was asking. My grandfather, without hesitation, told them that asking me for money was not only inappropriate but downright crass, especially considering that they hadn't offered me any financial help all these years. I couldn't have agreed more. It wasn't that I didn't want to help my sister or support her in building a better future, but the idea of just giving them money didn't sit right with me. If I started handing out money, it felt like they would just keep coming back for more in the future. My parents, of course, weren't pleased with this. They started arguing with both me and my grandparents, claiming that I owed them money because they took care of me as best as they could for so many years. My dad called me selfish for not giving back to my family after everything they had supposedly done for me. It was honestly laughable hearing these words come from their mouths, especially when they had never shown any real care or support for me in the ways that truly mattered. They never felt guilty cutting me off, but now they were trying to guilt trip me into bailing them out financially because they knew I had money. In the end, I stood firm. I made it clear to my sister that if she ever wanted to make a change in her life, if she ever wanted to build a better future for herself, I would always be there to support her in whatever way I could. I would help her find opportunities and I would be her ally. But I was not going to give her any handouts. I told my parents that I owed them nothing. I continued, my voice steady but firm. I will be telling everyone in the family exactly what your true intentions are. I'm going to let them know how you've been trying to manipulate me into giving you money, and how you've been using guilt and lies to get what you want. You can go to hell because I won't be your meal ticket. My parents looked furious when they heard this. They clearly wanted to argue further, but seeing my grandfather, they kept their thoughts to themselves. Without a word, they both got up to leave quietly. It was like they couldn't even look at me anymore, not after what I had just said. After they left, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. My grandparents were glad that I had not given in to my parents. I knew my parents and my sister were never going to see things from my perspective, and that was something I needed to come to terms with. It's been a while since I last updated, and since leaving my hometown, I've returned to my life abroad. I'm relieved to say that my parents can't reach me here or trouble me the way some of you may have worried about, so there's no need to stress about that. I also want to mention that I did feel a bit bad for my sister. Despite everything that happened, I didn't want to leave her behind with nothing, especially considering she was still figuring things out. So before I left my hometown, I quietly gave her $5,000. I told her that I hoped she would use the money to start over, move to a better town, create a new life for herself, and hopefully find some direction. I wanted her to have an opportunity to change things, to take control of her future. But even with the money I gave her, I'm not sure what she'll actually do with it. I want to believe that she'll use it wisely, that it'll help her find something more fulfilling. But honestly, I don't have much faith. I've seen the way she has approached things so far, and I worry that she might not take this chance seriously. Regardless, I did my part by supporting her, and ultimately, it's her decision to do something good with it.